Hello everyone, it's Major Park. Thank you guys for coming back to my video. Today's topic is about a transgender, which is LGBT. L stand for lesbian, G stand for gay, B stand for bisexual, and T stand for transgender. Before I talk about this topic, okay, I want all of you guys to understand that United States military, we are the one of the most organizations that we always treat people with respect, dignity, and equal opportunity. There's no discriminate against the race, origin, sex, gender. All those things does not segregate or discriminate you. Okay, that's not how the U.S. military operates. Okay, we treat everybody with the same dignity and respect, and it is a equal opportunity for every one of you. Do not think in any way that I'm talking about my opinion or my recommendation or advice. This is not about that. Okay, this is just to strictly so you guys know what's going on within the U.S. military, so that the moment you guys join the service, that you have somewhat expectation management. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, that you have somewhat situational awareness of what's going on within the U.S. military. Through February 1st, the cost of treating troops with the diagnosis of gender dysphoria has totaled about it's close to 8 million, right? So $8 million. So that included a 22,992 psychotherapy visits and 9,321 prescriptions of hormones and 161 surgical procedures. As you can see, there's a large number of numbers related to the treatment, right? The visits, medical visits, right? As you can see, this is something that's even with the military, right? There's a lot of people with this treatment is required. Some people might think that while we're spending our defense budget for surgery cost, which is cost about $5.8 million, but it is a serious condition, and it is a serious issue that military treats seriously, and we help them to get better. This cost nearly $5.8 million surgery costs, more than $2 million costs according to the data. Brad, the Pentagon's former top personnel official and one of the architects Obama-era policy, said Wednesday the number of transgender troops is smaller than anticipated, as is the cost of treating them. He noted that the Pentagon spends about $50 billion per year on healthcare. A few span here is dwarfed by the treatment costs. Virtually any ache and pain you can think of, said Carson, who is now a professor of public policy at the University of Virginia. Relatively small number of transgender troops are also indicates that recruits are not joining the military to receive medical treatment. You see, that's the thing too, because people sometimes have perception that people are joining the service because they're gonna get the free surgery operations just because of that reason. But that's not the case. Okay, there may be, right. I'm not saying that's a factual statement. People join the service because they want to serve the country. Okay, we need every qualified patriot willing to serve in our armed forces. Okay, said Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Carla Gleason, and Pentagon spokeswoman. The 2018 update to the 2016 policy is not a ban on transgender service members. It is a policy on gender dysphoria. Any currently serving transgender service member with diagnosis of gender dysphoria will remain under 2016 policy. Any new policy will not apply to those individuals. If you want to go further in the past, right? There used to be a policy called a don't ask, don't tell policy. During his 1992 presidential campaign, Bill Clinton announced his intention to end the ban on homosexuals in the military if elected. Gay rights supporters rejoiced, but the new president's efforts met with the stiff bipartisan opposition in Congress, as reported in the Atlantic. Documents released by the Clinton Library in 2014 about the debate included handwritten notes suggesting that Colin Powell, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, argued strongly for keeping ban in place. But over the course of the debate, he noted Powell suggested possible solution could be that we stop asking. Okay, you're not gonna ask that service member, hey, are you gay or are you lesbian? Okay, basically you don't ask and you don't tell. That's what it was about. This policy was lifted afterwards, but just kind of want to give you kind of background. This don't ask, don't tell policy existed in the past. It's no longer there anymore. executive order enabling all qualified Americans to serve their country in uniform. Right, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution as laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1, policy. All Americans who are qualified to serve in the armed forces of the United States should be able to serve. All volunteers force thrives when composed of diverse Americans who can meet the rigorous standards for military service and an inclusive military strength in our national security. It is my conviction as Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces that gender identity should not be a bar to military service. Moreover, there is a substantial evidence that allowing transgender individuals to serve in the military does not have any meaningful negative impact on the armed forces. That's a big thing, right? Just because you're transgender, gay, that doesn't mean that's going to bar you in enlisted service. It does not have any meaningful negative impact on the armed forces. He is reiterating it, and he's emphasizing that. The previous administration does not alter any policy to bar transgender persons in almost all circumstances from joining armed forces and from being able to transition gender while serving. Rather than relying on comprehensive study by a non-partisan, federally funded research center, the previous administration relied on a review that resulted in policy that set unnecessary barriers to military service. Revocation. Section 2. The President Memorandum, March 23, 2018. Military service by transgender individuals is hereby revoked, and the Presidential Memorandum of August 25, 2017, military service by transgender individuals remains revoked. Okay. Agency roles and responsibility in furtherance of policy described in Section 1 of this order, I hereby direct following. Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Homeland Security with respect to Coast Guard shall, after consultation with the Joint Chief of Staff about how best to implement this policy consistent with the applicable law, take all necessary steps to ensure all directives, orders, regulations, policies of their respective department are consistent with this order. These steps shall include establish a process by which transgender service members may transition gender while serving, along with any further steps the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Homeland Security deem appropriate advance the policy described in Section 1 of this order. Like, for example, immediately prohibit involuntary separation, discharges, denials of readiness and constant service based on gender identity under circumstances relating to their gender identity, right? Just because their gender identity, that doesn't mean that they're going to force them to discharge from service, right? So that's what he's saying, that immediately prohibit, right? That's going to be lifted. There's no, they're going to have any type of a, discharge or separation because of their gender identity. Last thing I want to talk about is as of this writing, TRICARE, the civilian healthcare providers, military generally doesn't cover surgery for gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a medical condition in which some transgender people, the difference between gender they are thought to be birth and the gender they know themselves can lead to serious emotional distress that can affect their health and everyday lives if not addressed. According to TRICARE, active duty service members may request waiver if their provider deems surgery medicals necessary. We asked TRICARE whether Biden's executive order would change the current policy in any way, in which a spokesman told us maybe. The U.S. military providing healthcare transgender service members, including transition-related surgeries, precedes Biden's presidency. In November 2017, the Pentagon announced had approved gender reassignment surgery for active duty members. For the military, the case made headlines. LGBTQ-focused news site Pink News Observer because it was so rare. A 2019 analysis by USA Today on the costs associated with healthcare transgender troops found it to be relatively negligible in comparison to the overall budget and size of the armed forces. Between July 2016 and the 2019 USA Today report, there have been 161 transition-related surgeries. The overall size of the military at that time numbered 2.1 million troops. In some, Biden's executive order of January 2015-2021 overturned a Trump policy severely restricting the optional transgender people serving in the military, which itself overturned policies established under Obama's administration. However, we have found no evidence to confirm or deny a claim that Biden's policy change will provide free transgender surgery to military service members. This goes back to our combat power. Right? It can be a very hot topic. We support the service member by taking care of them. Right? It doesn't make sense because I'm not going to take care of that individual because of their gender. We support the mission and we support the country and we support the military We support every individual. Obviously, active duty, right? We do have a TRICARE healthcare, right? Which is that you get free of service medical service, right? So if you go to the surgical operations, they will support you, right? Key thing is that if you go through the medical treatment, and if you go doctor, your physician diagnosed with whatever that the symptom or whatever that you are, the gender dysphoria or gender reassignment, whatever that your primary doctor approve you as, that's something that obviously gonna help you get the surgical the provide free gender surgery. It's just that I don't like the words that free gender surgery. I just don't like the word at all, because once again, it's all related to combat power. I don't want people to think that we're joining service to get a free surgical transgender service. That's not the case. We do not know what kind of a suffer, what kind of a symptom. We don't have any right to think about that person's status. Okay, I do not have any rights. You do not have any rights unless you're that person, right? So, two is that it is to support their service members regardless of their status, right? So, and that all everything correlates to combat power. Overall health is related to combat power. So I don't want people to think that some people are joining service because of a free surgery of a transgender surgery. Okay, so please don't think like that. I think that's when you get into a trap of a having a too much opinion about or a conflict into your situation. So once again, that's today's topic. Thank you guys for watching my video, and thank you guys for liking my video. I appreciate it. And that's all I have for today. Thank you. It was a major part.